Yeah, I have two AirPods. One of them is not marked. One of them is marked with a 2. And I think I might have gotten some of them mixed up.
First world problems.
Yeah, no. I have too many AirPods.
Don't you hate when your second pair of AirPods die?
It's frustrating. Nothing is worse.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Portable Trevor here, and today we have a very special guest. He is a UCB alumnus, and he's a TikTok star. Please welcome Brett Schultz. What's up, Brett?
What's up? How are you?
Pretty good, man. So, Brett, you are an improv master, so I thought we could start off this show with some warm-ups. So let's do some improv warm-ups.
I was going to say, don't make me do improv without warming up. I need to get my zip, zap, zop in.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Can you do, or what's like a 2-person? Zip, zap, zop's like a...
Yeah, that would not be a good one for over the internet. We could definitely do something called like word train, where basically like we do like like I will say a word and then you'll make it into a 2-part word. And then I would, so if I said like book, you'd say like book club. And then I would just add on to that last word. So I'd do like book club house. And then you'd be like book club house party. That's a fun one. Cool.
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay. It's very hard too.
It sounds like it.
Okay. All right. I'll start. Tree.
Tree house.
Tree house party.
Tree house party. Club.
Wait, what did you say? Club?
Yeah.
Did I go out? Yeah, a little bit, but you're good. Treehouse party club owner.
Ooh. Treehouse party club owner bouncer.
Treehouse party club owner bouncer to the moon. You can kind of do that too.
House club party owner bouncer to the moon space station.
Treehouse party club owner bounce her to the moon space stationary bike.
Treehouse party club owner bouncer to the moon space stationary. I already forgot what it was. I lose.
There's no win or lose, but it was bike. But if we're doing winners, I'll take it.
Okay, bike. Awesome. Well, Brett, thank you so much for coming on, dude. I think that was a pretty good warm-up.
I think so.
So Brett, you have trained at UCB. I mean, it's in the title of this video. So why don't you kind of introduce yourself, like tell us who you're about and kind of tell us like what you've done.
For sure. So yeah, and I will say, like, I always trained at UCB. I took 3 classes there, but you kind of have to use something on your bio as like, this is the reputable source that I have.
But that's 3 more classes than most improvisers have taken.
There you go. I'll take it. So I quit I had a full-time job out of college as a creative producer. So I went to college for I did like a weird mix major. Maybe we'll get into that later, but I took a creative producer job right out of college at a Christian company that did like summer camps. So I was doing like a lot of like writing and producing there. But there was like a very like clear glass ceiling after a couple of years. And so that's when I auditioned for this apprenticeship company, an acting apprenticeship at Actors Theater of Louisville, which is a great regional theater in Kentucky. And getting that was kind of like now I'm like pursuing acting. So I've been doing that 2.5 years now. And worked at the theater in Louisville, which was a great experience. And then from there moved up to New York. I was taking classes at UCB. I was performing on a sketch team at the People's Improv Theater in New York. And then whenever the pandemic hit, I've been on TikTok ever since. That's been my unexpected stage of the last year. Gotten a lot bigger audience on that platform than I've ever had before. So that's what I've been doing in the past year. I'm also improvising, doing some socially distanced shows here in Atlanta. But yeah, that's kind of like the rough story of like what I've done and where I'm going and what I do now.
No, that's awesome. So with TikTok, with the so many TikTok stars have been born out of boredom and just being confined to your house, and you took that opportunity and just like ran with it. So what got you started on that?
Yeah, like it is so funny because I moved to New York in June of 2019. And it was very like, okay, this is like the path that I'm taking. I'm going to be taking improv classes at UCB, which is Upright Citizens Brigade. For those who don't know, it's the improv theater Amy Poehler and a couple other guys started. And I was going to get on a performing team there. And, that takes a little while. But okay, if I'm in New York for 3 years, this will kind of be my path to being able to do like TV comedy full time. And then in March, I flew to Nashville for a wedding on March 13th. On March 14th, I started like showing COVID symptoms. I like had a fever and I think I had a temperature of like 101.4, something like that. So because I had just come from New York and everyone was like, what is this like COVID thing? Maybe you should like get it checked out. And I went to Nashville to be in a wedding. And so I was like, I should probably take this seriously. And went to the ER, got tested. And then 2 days later, they called me. They said my test results came back negative. And then 2 hours later, no, 30 minutes later, they called me back and they were like, hey, we made a mistake. Your test was positive. And I remember saying on the phone, that's a pretty big mistake to make. And they were like, we're sorry. And I was like, oh, well, okay. There's nothing I can do at this point. So
There's
I had
only
to get
so much we can do. We're only doctors.
Exactly. Yeah. We're only like medical professionals. And so I had to stay in Nashville for 2 weeks by myself at an Airbnb, which was honestly a vacation. It was not bad. And I did not get very sick. But while I was there, that's when like Broadway started getting shut down, and that kind of set the thermostat for like what theaters in New York would be doing. And the, UCB shut down, the sketch theater where I performed shut down. And my friend told me about TikTok. And to me, it was just these like dances at the time. And my first TikTok actually was a dance. But yeah, exactly. I'm doing like if you're watching live, you'll get a treat of the dance. But I realized
that things that only audio listeners can't enjoy.
I know. Sorry, all you scums at home listening on your iPhone. But so while I was at the Airbnb, I made a video actually about my COVID experience. It was so new and, so many people were so afraid. And I was in a position where I was like, okay, well, I actually have experience with this. No one I know has had COVID. I'm the only one. And it felt like a little responsibility to be like, okay, like I need to kind of share with people like the realities of like, hey, it's not, maybe as intense as you think it is for certain people. But with that, like, here's what we can do to help. And like, at the time, like staying home and just like being really careful with it being so new. And that video got like maybe like 16,000 views on YouTube, which was cool because people were being impacted by my story. And as a performer wanting a career in the industry, I was like, oh, like this is where people are going to see my material. This is where people can hear me speak, is on the internet. Mm-hmm. And I've always known that, but I was never forced into it. Like COVID kind of forced me into, hey, you can't perform live, so this is really all you have. And so that's why I started making TikToks, because I was like, okay, there's an audience here. Like maybe I can get some things going. And then a month later, I was when my first, video kind of went viral, and then things just kind of got rolling from there. So it's really wild because obviously, last year was so nuts for a lot of people. And it was hard in a lot of ways, but with that is like one of the, best thing that's happened to my career, because it kind of forced me to reassess and say, okay, like you can't follow this certain path. Maybe there's another option for you. And it kind of taught me that as long as I can be adaptable, like I can really, do anything. So.
Yeah. So I work in the wrestling industry, as you know. And,
right.
Things that I love about wrestling is no wrestler does the same thing their entire career. Some of them do, but they always change at least a little bit. And some of the best wrestlers of all time, they change who they are like every other year to, keep it fresh and reinvent themselves. And I kind of translate that to, anyone in the entertainment or creative business, because it's so important to adapt and to change who you are and what you do in order to survive. Because if you keep doing the same thing, especially in the interwebs day and age, then you're going to be left behind. So, and that's what you did, because your thing was theater and performing, and then now there's nowhere to perform. So where else can you perform but to adapt? And so that's good that you kind of had that training and that like knowledge and those skills, and you just kind of transferred it over to TikTok.
Yeah, and it is the best thing I could have realized and learned, because like I said, I was like watching all these performers before me and like seeing all the steps that they took. And I was like, oh, if I take those same steps, I'll end up in the same place where those people are. But this whole thing has really taught me, like, one, that's not going to make you like an individual. That's not going to make you stand out in any way to just like repeat what other people have done. But two, especially with comedy, it's so like timely, and the way the industry moves is so fast. And because of that, like I'm just not going to like be able to follow the same steps that the guy did before me and get the same outcome, because that's what worked for that guy, and that role, that position in the industry is already taken. So in order for me to like become successful, I really have to do it another way than other people, because that's going to like individualize my voice and just, I don't know, I guess give me like a clearer path. So I'm really thankful it happened the way it did.
Yeah. So what kind of still bothers me about TikTok is, especially when someone says that they're...
Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Let's talk about our TikTok pet peeves.
Just people say, oh, I'm a TikTok comedian. And I'm like, oh, come on. But you were a comedian before that, and you just kind of transferred your skills over. So what is the difference between a TikTok comedian, I think you know what I mean by that, put that in quotations if you want, and someone, who can actually do stand-up or, do improvisational comedy?
Yeah, it's so funny, because I mean, I think about this all the time. Like, I watch those Instagram like comedy videos where it's like a guy walking with a girl and she's like super hot. And then there's another guy on the side of the street, and he like takes his shirt off, and then she like comes over to him, and the joke is like that he like stole the girlfriend, or they're like, comedy on Instagram is always about like cheating on someone. I don't know if you see these like sketches.
I know it's not an original take. I feel like it thinks cheating is the funniest thing ever. Like, it happens every day, and people get cheated on, but it's just like, why would you want to joke about that?
I know. It's like, and you nailed it on the head. It's like not an original take. And so that's what's interesting about TikTok, is it really is a lot of like riffing off of other people and like copying and kind of making your own version sometimes of people's stuff. So yeah, there is a ton on there that I'm seeing that's like, hey, like we've done this already. I even saw a TikTok the other day that was a Vine a bunch of years ago, but someone like remade it as a TikTok and it like blew up. It was that, the song Pump Up the Jams. Yeah. And then you like see someone pumping up like a bicycle tire, but then you look and it's actually like a red raspberry jam. That was like a huge Vine, years ago. That Vine. Yeah. And someone like remade it on TikTok and it got so many views. And
Vine's not a thing anymore. No one will ever know.
I know. And I will say, like, I do think like creativity is a lot about stealing, but I don't know. Regardless, there's so much I could say on it. My like hope though is that I'm bringing like just actual comedy to that platform. Am I a TikTok comedian? Am I like a comedian? Like, it doesn't really matter. I don't think the label really like says a lot. But I do really focus on, I'm not trying to get views here. I'm not trying to like fit some kind of formula. I'm not trying to see something that's like worked and then just like do it again. Most of the time, what I'm doing is just like trying to give like a really original take on something. And I just happen to use this platform to upload it on. So I think that's the difference, is like, people that are trying to like cater to this specific audience versus people who are trying to just like make good comedy that they like. And it is tough because like I'm trying to grow a following, you know, like my manager is like very still encouraging me to like, hey, the bigger numbers you're getting on TikTok, like the more opportunities are going to pop up later, as they already kind of have. So there are times where I'm like, yeah, all I'm doing right now is just catering to what I know people will like. But that's kind of like the business side. And then the like artistic side is like, hey, like, I don't really care if this video does well. Let's just like, I think it's funny, so let's just do that. So I think that's the big divide.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier you think it's okay, steal a bit and take inspiration. I have done that in my filmmaking career so many times. It's just, I think it's okay to absolutely do that in the beginning, but what's the difference between just stealing and just taking a little bit of inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I talk about a lot. It's kind of this thing where there's this like funnel that you're going down to find your artistic voice, or your, in my sense, like comedic voice. It's something like if you look at like Kyle Mooney, like he's one of my favorite sketch comics, and he just has
Most underrated actor on SNL.
Yeah, he's so funny, and he just like does things that are like no one else does that except for Kyle Mooney. He just has he has a voice and a language that I don't really feel like I've seen a lot of. And but what I think someone like that has probably done as he's like continued his career has been like, oh, I'm going to take a little bit from that person. And like naturally, these people that inspire me are going to rub off on me in some way. And I'll probably find myself emulating them eventually. But then the deeper you get into your funnel, the more kind of like individualized it becomes, because you're taking like parts of all of these people from the past and now making this like new person, I guess. So that's kind of like what I feel like I'm in the midst of right now, is like, hey, I really like how this comic talks about this, subject, or like even the cadence that this guy speaks in, or the way that this person does improv. And you can feel some like natural guilt from that, because you're like, oh, am I just like copying what everyone else does? But it's like, as you're figuring it out, like, why not? Why not be taking things that you see or like that you like of other people, and see if those things like work for you as well. Because eventually the more you kind of steal and borrow and copy, the more you're going to end up with like something really actually very original at the end, and updated too. Something about comedy is it's so of the times. And so you're never going to, I'm never going to be like copying Dana Carvey, because Dana Carvey was like doing sketch like 20 years ago, and he wasn't like talking about things in a way that we talk about things now. And so if I steal a little bit from Dana Carvey, like it's gonna look very different in 2021. So yeah, I say like, especially as you're starting out, just like do stuff other people are doing, especially because the focus should be like, just do something. I think people are like, want to be so original and they don't know their voice yet. So therefore they just like kind of freeze and don't make any content at all. Like my suggestion is always just like be putting stuff out there, be making stuff, because whether you're copying or not, you're at least getting experience from it and learning more about what your voice is.
Yeah, absolutely. And an example that I'll give is, whenever Tony Hawk shared my video last summer, I wanted just to sketch with my friends. I was like, I love these games, and technically the joke isn't that original, but I had an idea to execute it in a different way. And so the way it's edited, the way the story's presented is not the most original idea ever, but it's coming from me, and it's coming from my voice and my friends. So, we put it together, and then we were like, and it was just like, all of the planets aligned, and Tony Hawk shared it. And
that's so cool. I didn't know that.
I thought I told you that.
I mean, maybe.
Probably the best day last summer.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And I remember when I posted it, I was so worried that people would say stuff like, seen this before or something like that.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? All these things taken from my life and all these skills that led up to this, and it made something that people really enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's such a, I mean, I feel the exact same way, like, especially when I was starting out, of when you start posting stuff, like, only your friends are the ones seeing it. So it's so much scarier because you're like, I know people are going to have an opinion about this. Um, but what I always get to is like, well, if they're going to judge you for like making something, like they should have made it themselves. You know, they really have no like justification in their judgment. And you never know what's going to happen with it. Like you could have let like the fear of what other people might think control your decision to post that video. And if you had, like, Tony Hawk would have never known who you are, and now he knows your name. So
Probably not any.
he
Months
remembers
ago.
you. He remembers you.
Yeah, we're pals. He
Yeah.
actually just texted me. Actually,
Oh,
I
nice.
think we're gonna hang out tomorrow.
Oh, Tony.
So Brett, I love your sense of humor on TikTok. It's something that I gravitate towards with friends, and it's just making fun of very niche things, but also trendy things at the same time. Like one example I can think of is when everyone at the beginning of or the end of last year was sharing, their Spotify rewinds, whatever they're called, and you just kind of made a reaction to you being like, "Oh my gosh, like this is what you think I'm gonna react like, oh my gosh, look there it is, there's your top songs." And then it's like how you actually react, and then you just leave the room.
Oh yeah,
I was
I don't
like,
care.
that's so so like what gravitates you towards jokes like that?
I think I'm so something about my personality is I'm extremely observant and extremely judgmental. And sometimes that judgment comes out of me in a way that is negative. That does happen. But I would love to say a lot of times that judgment is more of a, I have like a emotional awareness and a self-awareness about what's happening here in a way that like this person involved might not have, if that makes sense. So because I like see things in a way that I'm like, I feel like I'm interpreting this in a really like honest way, maybe in a way that you're not interpreting it, that like allows me to feel like I have a different point of view from people about this. And because my point of view is like different, there's something like funny there because I'm like looking at this in a different way and I'm tilting my head at it when people are not. There's absolutely like room for jokes here, and I just kind of have to figure out like what's the best way to like explain my interpretation of what's happening. So that video that you mentioned, which was like very simple, but I was looking through all these like Spotify end of 2020 things, and I was like, I do not care like what anyone has been listening to. And that's, that is me. Like it is something specific for me because I think a lot of people did like it. And I think a lot of people are more invested in music than I am, just like in general. I kind of like find my artists and just like stick with them. But I was like, if I don't care, like there's probably a lot of people who also do not care. So what's the best way to like tilt my head and like you like raise my voice about what I think is happening here is to make a video where I'm like, you think that we all care, you think that we all care, and then I show you like I'm gonna walk out of the room because, and it's not like disrespectful. It's not like you're so stupid, but it's just like me stating this is the reality of what happens when you post your end of your Spotify thing. Like some people don't really like look at it. So yeah, that's kind of like I feel like that'd kind of be like
Absolutely.
my process
And I think it's
as
good.
well.
I think it's also good commentary on, I mean, I hate that I'm starting the sentence off, but we live in a society where
But we do live in a society.
We do be living in a society, but we live in a society where people think that everyone cares about their opinions. Like today, I posted a really dumb rant on my story that probably 5 people even care about.
Oh, I read it. I was livid.
Like, oh, I get that.
Really? No, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Oh, someone cares. Finally.
No. I wanted you to think I cared, but I didn't.
Well, okay, never mind.
I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna go look at it now after this podcast.
Okay, yeah, please do.
Okay.
But we do, like, people think that people care about just little like, oh, to post this song that I'm listening to. Like, I bet somebody's gonna care about that. Mm-hmm. And in reality, only one, maybe two people are going to care, unless you're just this ridiculous celebrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's where comedy is like pretty easy in the sense that you really just have to be brave enough to say what everyone else is thinking, you know, because there's a lot of times where like my roommate Audrey, you know Audrey, like she thinks I'm very funny and it makes me feel very good. But like sometimes I'll literally just say like a true thing that's happening in the room and she'll like lose her mind laughing. I'm kind of like, I mean, that's kind of funny, but like, why do you think it's that funny? I'm like, but why do you think I'm funny? She's like, you're just like not afraid to like say the truth. And that's like all comedy is being like, hey guys, like you're not thinking about this in this way, but here you go. And then it's such like a relief for people because they're like, oh, like one, either, oh, someone else is thinking about it in the way I am, or two, what a surprise. Like I've never thought about it in that way before. So yeah, it's really just like saying what's actually going on. And it's scary because, you know, I would love to do a lot of like political, oh, my Siri just turned on. I would love to do a lot of like political commentary through my comedy. Because I think that would probably be some of my funniest stuff, but I'm really afraid to. I'm really just like not brave enough yet to talk about things because I'm like nervous I'm going to like offend someone on like either side of the coin or something like that.
Joke one, Trump sucks. Am I right?
Yeah. Am I right? What an original joke. Yeah, but that's why it's just like the class clown that you like can think of in high school, like he or she probably did not care like about what people thought about them or if they're going to say something offensive. And obviously there's like limits, you know, you don't just like go around saying whatever you want, but there is like a certain level of like courage and confidence in comedy to be like, hey guys, like this is what's going on. And people might like judge you for that.
I love talking about this aspect of comedy. Have you ever been to like a comedy club where the stand-up act, he gets up there and whenever he leaves, you're like, that guy's a jerk. Like he just, he doesn't paint himself as a good person. He doesn't stop talking about his sex life and the way he treats women. And it just makes it not funny.
Yeah.
I think even people, you know, Bill Burr or Bo Burnham, like they say the most ruthless things on stage, but they still paint themselves as a likable person first.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I don't know what that is. I mean, I do always say that I think comedy is like moving into a direction of positivity rather than negativity because it's so much about like the surprise, you know, that's like where like the laugh comes from is like experience something that you didn't expect. And that like creates a guttural like emotion out of you that's audible and physical. And something that's not surprising anymore is like my dad abandoned me jokes. Like if you're a stand-up comic and you're still like making jokes about how your dad is a poor father, I'm like, okay, like that one, I've heard this before. Two, with what we like know more about like, I feel like the familial unit and like the importance of certain members in the family, it's like, that's not really funny. Like, it's just really sad. What is funny is a stand-up comedian talking about how obsessed their dad is with them and how much their dad loves them and how their dad is like crazy because he loves them so much. Like that's actually funnier now because that's the thing that's a surprise. And I think that that's kind of like something that's happening in general is comedians are no longer like, it's no longer like you have to like be depressed and like sad all the time and like getting drunk every night. Like you have to have a bad life to like be able to be a comedian. It's really turned into like, hey, let's just like recognize things. Let's talk about real things. And sometimes those things are like just fun and happy and silly. So I think that's why like John Mulaney has like really changed the game a lot because he's like, let's just like, let's have fun up here. Let's not feel like we have to like shit on things. So.
Yeah, I feel like.
Can I swear on this podcast, by the way?
I think people, you can say whatever you want.
Shit,
what
fuck,
did you want to say?
Come, no, that's too much.
Oh man, already. Demonetized. I think with comedy, obviously, comedy comes in waves. There are things that are or that were funny 10 years ago. You
Hmm.
know, there's been thousands of Star Wars jokes making fun of, you know, Luke, I am your father. And those jokes probably aren't funny anymore
Hmm.
because they were so of its time.
Hmm.
So I think our generation and Gen Z, we just grew up with all this negativity that we were like, we've heard it all before. Let's,
Hmm.
you know, let's hear positivity somehow in a funny way. So that's why John Mulaney is hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like,
And also,
no, no,
okay,
you're good. You're good.
okay. Um, and I know you and I share a love of Cody Ko, and I think he
Yeah.
kind of has both. Like he will rail on people, but he'll also weirdly be positive sometimes.
You know, his meanness is always justified. I think that's maybe the difference. Like he'll like say like he'll make
Yeah,
fun of
100%.
people, but it's always true. And it's never in a way that feels like this is who you are as a full human being. You know, like I love
Mhm.
the videos where he like roasts like people's Instagrams or something.
It's
And
almost like a character.
yeah, a little bit. And like he's really just talking about like your Instagram posts. Like he's not talking about like, oh, this like person must like suck and be awful and like be so dumb. He's just like isolated to like this thing is true and it that's why it's funny. And if you can't like be honest about the fact that what you're doing is a little bit funny, then like move on. You know,
Mhm.
you're not like that's not the type of authenticity that I'm like wanting to hang out with. So that's fine.
One video that I can think of that I think is a great example of that is he Instagram, I don't know his name, but his thing was he just had a saxophone and every punchline was him playing the saxophone
Mm.
and like he was also ripped, so he'd take his shirt off and obviously there's a bunch of cheating jokes. It's like how can you make that kind of content and not expect people to talk about it?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a huge lack of non-self-awareness when you're like, why are people making fun of me? Like taking my shirt off as the punchline. It's because like, dude, that's kind of weird. Like, don't.
Could you imagine if just buff people at a party just took off their shirt and they expected everyone to laugh?
Trevor, that is what happens. That's America.
Man, I guess I've not been to enough frat parties to gauge
Yeah,
that.
actually, I've never been to one, so maybe not. I just watch movies.
So, with comedy, do you think like TikTok is the way to go to reach people right now? Because I feel like, you know, not enough people go to YouTube or any of these other platforms right now. Obviously, you can't do theater or you can do smaller ones like we do. We perform at this place called Roll Call in Atlanta, and it's
Hmm.
socially distanced, but we keep it really small.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it really depends, like the the number level you're at, and I always hate talking about like numbers, like followers or view counts or
Right.
anything like that, because it really just is like it just doesn't feel helpful to talk about sometimes. But I think that the great thing about TikTok is that it allows you to build a following from scratch. I mean, I had like 150 followers, and then the next day I had 150,000 followers, and then like the numbers just like risen and fallen, but like risen for specific reasons like since then. And so for me, it was like, this is the platform people are going to really see my stuff, because the great thing about that platform is if your stuff is good and it's like really good, it will probably do well on TikTok, because the way the algorithm works is a viewer, it calculates, you know, how much time a viewer spends on a video, how many comments that video is getting, just like the amount of engagement each video is getting.
Mhm.
And if you make a good video, like people will probably watch good things. There's obviously like that's not a black and white rule, because some stuff that people make is incredible and it doesn't like get any traction, and it's a lot about timing. I think it's a lot about luck on that app. But if you're making good content, like you will build some kind of audience. That might be 5,000
Mhm.
followers, that might be 1 million followers, but you will build something. It is limiting, I would say, mostly in the audience. I think most of my audience on TikTok is like below, It's probably below like 25 years old. And so I have a lot of teenagers watching my stuff. And because of that, a lot of times when I'm writing, I'm like, okay, what's a joke that's like going to work? You know, how many times am I going to throw like Cole Sprouse's name into this video so I can get like a level of like relatability with these teenagers? So it's not like the coolest platform to be doing comedy because it, you know, like you said, like the cheating comedy videos do just as well. And that's infuriating. But I think that if you're trying to like start a career in this, and if you're trying to like build up traction on the internet, TikTok is absolutely the place to start that. And then from there, it really depends like what kind of stuff you're doing. So my goal is like to build more of a following on Instagram so that because you can monetize a little easier there. But at the same time, I'm also not trying to be a social media influencer. Like that is never my dream. That has never been my dream. It will never be my dream. The only reason I'm doing this and focusing on building a following is so that like opportunities open up later down the road. You know, it's like how I got my agent in Atlanta. They like saw my videos and reached out to me. So that's what I'm continuing to do. Yeah.
I've talked about this a couple times on my show, and I have to tread lightly because it sounds like I'm just being super hateful with this. But one of my biggest problems with especially Instagram influencers is it feels like they don't have any discernible talents and they understand Instagram. So it just makes me not want to respect that.
Yeah.
Like the people that I follow, if I follow you, either you're a friend, a family member, or I think your content and what you make is dope, and I want to be inspired by it or something. Just following an Instagram influencer, I can't understand how you can be upset. And they're so good looking.
Yeah. And that's why like it's very frustrating. Sorry, you cut out a little bit at the end there.
Sorry.
I didn't know if you were finished.
I said, God, I can't even remember what I said. Basically, like, you know, if I'm following you, I follow you because you have a discernible talent or you're a friend or family member. And with Instagram influencers, why you would follow them they're so good looking, they have so many followers, maybe they'll follow me, or maybe you just like to be advertised to for some reason.
Yeah, I all the time I'll find someone that I'm like, this is not funny, like there's nothing here, and they have like such a huge following. That video does so well, and it's mind-boggling to like understand what specifically like Gen Z is looking for here. I do always get to the point where I'm like, I have to respect that person because they figured out a way to make this happen for themselves, and they're doing that thing. Like I can be annoyed at Instagram influencers all day long, but like they're the ones making money off of it, not me, you know? So there's a level of like, I judge you, but also way to go because you figured it out faster than I did, and you were able to do it with no talent. So yeah, but no, I totally agree. And I definitely like respect people on the internet who are like actually making like thoughtful things. I think that's something that like drives me insane, is seeing people where it's like, you didn't like put any effort into this at all. Even like mental effort into it. And that's what really like causes me to lose respect. Is if I'm like, I've seen this joke a million times before. You took no time to think through like what's an original point of view to have here. But also there's bad of everything in the world. So in every business and every industry. So it's to be expected.
Absolutely. So Brett, to shift a little bit, I wanted to talk about improv because I know it's one of your favorite things in the world, and it's become one of my favorite things in the world. I mean, I've loved it for a long time, but I recently. So tell me what got you into it and your love for it, and let's hear some of your pet peeves with improv.
Oh, you know, I have so many. This is where the judgment part comes in. I did improv, like, I feel like a couple times growing up, you know, like I think we had like a church, my church in middle school had like a bunch of like day camps during the summer, and we had an improv camp. And I don't think they were teaching us correctly, but that is where I did improv for the first time. And then when I was looking at colleges, there's this one school that had an improv team that was, you know, they did like church conferences, but there was an improv team like as part of the team. So I auditioned for that my senior year of high school, and then I got into that team. So it was like scholarship and like, great experience. And so I did improv for like 4 years in college on that team. But it was short form improv, which the listeners that don't know, because I know you know, Trevor, the short form is like games. So it's like what you might see on Whose Line Is It Anyway, where they bring up people to make the sound effects, or like people have to fill in the blank of your sentence, or like the dating game. Like there's lots of improv games. So it was just short form, and it was only stuff that had been passed down from like people who had been on the team before. So there was no knowledge, there was no like education or training or real life experience anywhere on this improv team, because it was just like people that have like passed down the information. So I left there. And in Birmingham, when I lived in Birmingham, I had that full-time job, and I started just getting really into Upright Citizens Brigade in New York. I was watching improv shows on YouTube like every night. They have like well-recorded improv shows, that like tons of them on YouTube. And then I got like the UCB training manual and was reading through that. And I just like kept finding ways to make sure I was doing improv. I found a theater in town that like was kind of sketch, and the guy who owns it still owes me like $600 for teaching for him. I'll never get that money, but it's fine. That was years ago. But I was teaching improv there in Central Birmingham, and then or in Central Alabama, and then I like built a team of people who had like done a couple improv shows somewhere. And then I kind of just like did training like with the team. And then up in New York was where I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can like take the classes finally. I can like see the shows. I was going to shows every weekend in New York. So yeah, I've covered like a lot of bases of improv, but I'm really happy with how it's given me tools all along the way to end up where I am now and understanding what I really, really love to do, which is like long form improv. And long form as opposed to short form just means that you're doing like scenes. There's no like game outside of it. There's only the game that's, happening within the scene work. Sometimes there's different like formats and structures and that kind of thing, but it's generally like you're just improvising scenes.
Long form is also super difficult. Brett actually did one recently with our mutual friend Deanna, and you guys did amazing, by the way.
Thanks, man.
So is that more of a challenge for you to do long than short form?
Yeah, that's why it's so much better to me, because it's like short form, you can really repeat a lot of things. You do this show, and there's a game called Sound Effects, where there's two people on the microphone that are audience members, and then two improvisers do a scene. And the audience members have to like make the sound effects in the microphone for the improvisers. And you start to get to a point where it's like, okay, audience members do the same kind of stuff every time. Like if you're like, oh, I'm going to like start up this chainsaw, they usually like make the sound of a chainsaw in a really like dumb way. And then you can just be like, oh, I ate too many burritos for lunch. Like it was a fart, everyone. And that's like the joke. And you can do that over and over and over, because you're doing live shows where people aren't seeing the last show. And if a joke worked before, you're like, let's just use it now as well, because I know it will work. Long form is different every single time, and there's just like no room for doing things that you've done before. So the fact that it's like it's a lot of unexpected, it's a lot of like, I wonder what tonight is gonna be, and it's just like good, like you learn like good writing, you learn good comedy through improv. So that's why to me it's the like superior form. If anyone wants to like fight me, I will fight you, but
please don't fight me.
I won't fight you. I feel like you agree with me.
Oh, I do.
Good. And not to hate on short form.
What are some of your
it's a great tool, but it's gotten me where I am now. But you got to move past short form at some point.
Absolutely. So what are some of your pet peeves with improv? What are some things that Brett Schultz just will not even touch and will not even tolerate?
It's so annoying, because I've been making this joke with Deanna a lot, actually, about casting directors on Instagram. This one recently that I saw, she like posted an Instagram story, and she was like, I want to let you know my pet peeves as a casting director. And it just is this like, okay, cool. Like you think you're so high and mighty because you have pet peeves. So I always feel strange when I talk about my pet peeves because I'm like, I did these things and I still do these things a lot of the time. But I have moved past some of them. So that was a long caveat to be like, I feel bad saying this stuff, but I'll always be honest about improv. I would say like generally like not listening to each other. Like improv should be very like whatever's the last thing that you said is what I'm building off of. Much like our warm-up game that we did. It's like I couldn't really make like a word out of like the word that you said three words ago, or I couldn't really make a word out of like what you're gonna say later or what I think you're gonna say. All I have to work with is the information that has just been given to me. And people pass over that a lot. They get in their heads about like where the scene should go or like what they want the story to be, which is never something I think you should focus on in improv either. And because of that, they just like stop listening to their scene partner. And there's real life stuff happening on stage that is not acknowledged. And I, as an audience member, am sitting there with all these people and we're like, oh, we just saw what happened and your improv partner did not. And now we're a step ahead of you because we have an understanding of like, what's the truth of this situation? What's the really funny thing here? We know it, but you just missed it. And that is not going to make for good improv. So I get really mad at people that are just like on their own track of where they think something should go. And I think that's another pet peeve as well, is like, there's no like, well, I thought it was going to go this direction, or I thought that this was going to happen with the bank teller and, the other character, whatever. It's like, okay, cool. Like that's irrelevant. That's not what happened. Literally all that we can work with is the stuff that is happening right here. So I'd say just like a lack of presence in general is really frustrating for me to see. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking of a team specifically that I saw recently, and I came home and I like was so mad. I like all my roommates, I was just like talking shit about this team and like being so upset about how they weren't listening. And it's like I can feel justified in being upset about those things because it's not that I am like, oh, they just have less experience or they, are still learning. I'm like, they're literally missing step one, which is to listen. So. And like I said, I mess up a lot too. So
we did a long form improv game a couple months ago that you were the monologist for with my team. And the beauty of that game, and this is tying into what you said, is the point of the monologue is to take little bits and create scenes with them. And that's so much fun to do because story and they can connect with that. Like whenever you were there, one of the first things you talked about was Harambe. And if you people know me, you know how much I love memes. And Harambe was one of my favorites. So I was like, all right, let's cook up something, baby. So I just created the Church of Harambe. That was the first thing I thought of because everybody worshipped him like a deity. So it's always fun when an audience can be like, put two and two together for them.
Yeah, well, and you made it easy for them because you're like, well, I already know that that's funny, so I'm just gonna like keep running with that thing. Yeah, and then it lets everyone be on the same page. So I remember that scene. I thought that was great.
Yeah, thanks. So, what do you think? What are some things that you think improvisers, especially if they're just starting out, what are some things that you think improviser can go on?
Say the last part one more time for me.
Oh man, did I cut out? I'm so sick of cutting out on this show. What are some like things new improvisers can work on? Besides, listening and, not saying no. Those are the best.
Sure. Yeah. I guess I would say, that's a really good question. I would be like surrounding yourself with it as much as possible. It's very easy for me to, when I'm like really into something, I don't really have a hard time like finding ways to experience that thing. So like improv is something I'm just like destined to love. And so when I was like 23, I was like buying books on improv and I was finding places to teach improv and finding people to perform with, and then watching YouTube videos about improv. And I just was like fully like putting myself into the world and understanding what I could learn from it. So I would say, like, if you're learning improv and you're not also going on YouTube and watching a 30-minute set at least once a week, it's like, what are you doing? Because you learn stuff in the classroom and you learn stuff from experience, but you also learn from people that are really good, and you also learn a lot from people that are really bad. And so that's why I think just like watching improv as much as you can does allow for you to, I don't know, just like see things from like an objective point of view, and then be able to figure out like, oh, that's something I do and I need to be careful of that. Or that's something I do and that's great. Or that's something I need to stop doing, you know? I will say with that, I think something that I have been taught about improv is to not forget that what you're portraying on stage is just real humanity. So making sure that you're also like living a life apart from just comedy. I get very obsessive. I'm obsessed with like two things. I feel like it's like comedy and like roller coasters. That's pretty much like where my interests are. And because of that, it's not hard for me to be like, oh, I'm just going to like watch improv shows like for hours. But if I'm only focusing on that, it's not allowing me to like be with the cashier and be like, what's this weird thing that this cashier's doing? Or like sit at the park and like watch people. One of my favorite things to do is hang out at airports, because you are just forced to like stare at people and like wonder about their lives. And that feeds into my like improv, because I'm like, oh, this weird thing that I experienced at some point in my life, I can now like use that to portray true humanity on stage. So that'd probably be my big advice, is just find ways to like soak in improv. Live shows aren't happening right now, so find stuff on the internet. It's all over. And two, be doing it. Like if all you have is like a roommate that wants to maybe do a little improv, do improv with them. If all you have is yourself and you live alone, do improv by yourself in your room. Like you can't do that. There's no reason to be waiting for like, oh, but I want to get on this like house team at this theater before I really start performing. Like those people were doing the small shows. And then the other thing would be just like go live your life, like experience new things, experience the world, because that's really what's going to like feed into your ability. And go to therapy, because I think therapy is helpful in like self-assessment and like just understanding why we do what we do as humans. I just signed up for therapy for next week for the first time. So that's why I'm excited about therapy. Thanks, man. Yeah.
Therapy's great. I've been one time. I probably should go again, but
yeah,
even if
I'm going to the woman that you went to.
Right? I don't know if I'm allowed to say her name.
I feel like we don't have to, but she sounds great.
She is great. But I think that's good advice for so many creative endeavors. Like you need to live a life outside of what you do, because, you know, if I'm a filmmaker and all I do is consume filmmaker things like how-to videos and I'm not really living a life. I'm just understanding that. And I think with filmmaking, you need to understand just life in general. Yeah. That's how you connect with people. That's how you connect with audiences. And my improv instructor, Daleks Miller, who's awesome, he gave us some good advice. He was like, you need to watch the news at least once a week. Like you need to know what's going on in the world. Because if you don't, then there could be an elephant in the room at some improv scene. And if you don't know what's going on, then you're not going to be in on the joke.
Absolutely.
Same thing with filmmaking. If, you know, I mean, you're not always going to make political pieces or whatever, but if you're making a sketch comedy thing and you're shooting it, you need to understand the world. I feel like you need to understand the landscape of comedy.
Yeah. And there's times, you know, that like something's going to come up. You know, you can't educate yourself on everything. You can't read Harry Potter and read all these books and read all those books. So like there will be things that come up, but yeah, just like exposing yourself to like as much humanity as possible, as much human behavior as possible, as much current
Culture
events.
yourselves, you pieces of shit.
Yeah. Read a book. I haven't done that in a while.
Read a book. That's always a good comeback.
Thanks. Dang, it's basic. It's cliche.
What are some of the most basic things someone can do, Britt?
The most basic things people can do. I have like a few people in my head right now. And I'm like,
I'll go ahead and bring this one up because me and Brett love doing this joke. I'm so quirky.
Yeah,
I'm so random.
I'm just like different. I'm not like normal girls. I'm like different.
I saw this picture. It was like girl like was in the food aisle of a grocery store and she like grabbed a bag of frozen food and just put it on her head and like made this face, and the guy took the picture and the caption was, "My girlfriend is so crazy."
So Jessica, you are so insane. You put peas on your head? That's crazy.
That's insane. How did you do that?
It's so funny. I also love when it probably works both genders, but I'll hear girls be like, "Oh, I'm not really good at making friends with girls. I like get along with guys better." And I was like, I feel like there's one common denominator there, and it might be you. Again, I'm sure men say the same thing, but I'm always like, I feel like you're probably the problem here.
Chase commented and said, "I need more buttons unbuttoned."
All right, we'll go one more, Chase.
Oh man.
There we go. This is my party shirt. I was like, I'm gonna wear something good tonight. I don't know if I'm.
What's the button to unbutton ratio
right now? We're at actually the bottom button was unbuttoned. I didn't even realize that. So we're about 3 on, 3 off right now.
All right, we're partying now. So Chase,
we're partying now, Chase. Yeah, I like these comments.
Oh yeah, let's read some of the comments. My friend Kendall said, "What it do?" What's up,
Kendall?
You're awesome. Chase asked, you don't like the whip and nay nay? That's probably when we were talking about TikTok.
It is. I did used to like it. I did it a lot.
I as an almost 27-year-old man, I feel like I whip and nay nay at least once a week.
Yeah, you do it ironically though, right?
Absolutely. I just think the dance is so ridiculous.
It's like it's okay to do things that are cliche as long as you're ironic about it. And the only person who can decide if you're being ironic is you. So, and Chase says, "No, it's not ironic." He really,
yeah, I actually enjoy whipping and nay nay, baby. It's what I do. Yeah. It's what it.
You're getting better at it. You're getting better.
Thanks. For the audio listeners, I just whipped and nay nayed.
Yeah. Also for the audience listeners, I just did like 7 backflips in a row, and I grew like 30 pounds of muscle. And
oh my God, dude, you're getting it.
I know. I don't know how I just did those backflips, but they were impressive, right?
Oh my, like you're still doing them. I'm still being impressed.
Dude, actually, I'm just going to keep doing this for a while so we can just keep talking.
I'm pretty blown away that you can carry a conversation while doing consecutive backflips.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a gift, so.
This episode ever.
What do you say?
I said this is the craziest podcast episode ever. I'm so crazy.
This is like so quirky of us to be talking about backflips.
Also, you said something earlier that we made fun of literally like 2 nights ago. You were like, COVID is just nuts. It's just crazy. It's a crazy world we live in.
Oh, well, this year has just been so crazy, right? It's just been so crazy. It's like, yeah, dude, we've all been living here.
Went in and out.
Oh, I just was repeating your joke of people being like, this year has just been. What really gets to me is when people are like, we all had a really hard year. Like we all like, I know this year has been so hard, and everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, I feel like for some of you guys, this year was pretty good. So you don't have to agree just to fit in.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty incredible last year. I'll say that, but in some ways, I was like, man, there's so many things I didn't get to do.
Yeah.
But I'm also much more blessed with what I was able to have. Mm-hmm. And Chase said my year was pretty great considering your year was good. Like
good, Chase.
You had a job, you got to work from home, you got to hang out with us.
You met me.
You met Brett. So it couldn't have been that bad of a 2020.
I think that's what it is it's like, I just would rather, like this year's been hard for me too. It's been way harder for a lot of people. I just would rather talk about like what are things that happened this year, not just like, oh, it's been so like this. It's like, yeah, we know that's not a new idea. That's not original. Let's like move on to something more interesting. I think that's what
it's
really
almost become the new like or just filler words. Like I hate when I'm watching the news. The newscast will be like 2020 is just such a crazy year, and I'm like, we know, just get on to what you were saying.
Yeah, it's very much the new talking about the weather. It's like, oh, I wonder like when this is gonna all be over. Like, okay.
Introverted people, their prayers have been answered. There's a new talking point.
Yeah, honestly, I know. I know.
So, Brett, I think we're gonna. It's been here, but is there anything you'd love to tell the people?
What, something like helpful? Something, is this like if you had a crowd of 1,000 people, what would you say to them?
Sure.
Or is this like where can they find you on social media?
I'll do that in a second.
Okay, good. What I want to say is this has been so fun. I've done a lot of these. I have a lot of friends that have started podcasts this year. So I was like the first guest on a lot of podcasts, and super great. But like a lot of them were just like question for like a job interview. And I was so excited for this because I was like, I think me and Trevor are just gonna like chill, like talk about stuff yeah, it was super conversational. Like I feel like we were just hanging out. So, you know, we probably would have talked more about like religion if we were hanging out under normal circumstances. But I think that's the only thing we passed over. So
I didn't know how comfortable you were talking about that, I guess.
I thought about that today. I was like, oh, I wonder if we're going to talk about Christianity. And I was like, I'm ready for it.
We can for, 10 more minutes if you want.
No, it's fine. I feel like we talked about improv, so we can move on.
Okay, cool. But yeah, Brett, thank you so much for coming on, man. Definitely love to have you on again in the future.
Thanks, Trevor.
So, chance to plug in and we'll end the show.
Sorry, say it again.
Oh my God.
They're cutting.
Going in and out. Okay. I said, so thanks for coming on, Brett. It meant a lot. Would love to have you on again in the future. So now just plug everything in and we'll end the show.
I actually did hear you. I just wanted you to compliment me a couple more times. Oh my God. So. Got it.
Well, Brett, thanks for coming on. It was a great...
Okay, so where you can find me on social media, on TikTok and Instagram, I am Brett the Astronaut. On YouTube and Facebook, look up Brett Schultz. You will find me. And I got a Twitter last week, and it is Brett the Astronaut is too many characters for the handle. And I just think I'm not going to do it. I just think I can't.
Oh.
So don't try to find me on Twitter because I'm not there.
How about Brett the Astro?
I thought about that. It just feels weird.
Does it feel right? Where did Brett the Astronaut come from?
Sophomore year of college, I got an iPhone. I downloaded Instagram. I thought, what would a cool name be? And then I thought Brett the Astronaut. And that's where it came from. I do love the aesthetic of space. So it probably like subconsciously was in there. But it just was something I thought sounded cool. And it's like your like AIM screen name. You're like stuck with it for so long.
Yeah. That's how I am with Portable Trevor. I think I was a sophomore in college when I created that.
Really?
I literally, the story is I thought it was cool. And I mean, I've given it more of a meaning.
I like it.
Yeah, it fits. Like I'm kind of a techie dude and I everything that I make. So, you can take me with you wherever you go. Portable Trevor.
And we will put you in our pocket.
Exactly. All right. Thank everybody. Brett Schultz. Woo! Oh my God.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. See you later, Brett. Everybody have a blessed
day.
Trevor. See you later.
Bye.